Hey guys, welcome to Raising the Standard. This is a podcast where we talk about real stories, real standards. I'm your host, Michael Slye. I'm the owner of Slye's Painting here in the Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati area. And we got a pretty interesting topic to talk about today. It is called The Real Cost of a Cheap Paint Job. Tune in. We're going to talk about this right now. Let's be honest. We all done it. We all get more than one quote, and one guy's cheaper than the rest, and we just think it's just painting, right? What could go wrong? Wrong. Okay, wrong. All right. I mean this in a nice way. I mean sometimes maybe you could get lucky, and maybe a painter's doing this out of his goodness of his own heart. That's a good painter. However, more commonly, what happens is you are going to be lacking in three areas, or one of the three, and that is rushed prep, okay, low end materials, as well with inexperienced labor. We're going to dive down in all three of those and see what does each of those mean. So rushed prep. So when a lot of painting companies come in and they want let's say they are hurting on work, they don't really have their schedule filled. They'll give you an estimate. If they're inexperienced in the proper prep, then they're going to price it as just a paint, just a light sand scuff paint. Move on. If there's a crack or anything, some painters will try to fill it with paint instead of caulking it. I've seen it all. This is real stuff. So you're gonna have rushed prep when there's not enough money on a job to pay a painter or a company to be able to properly do the right precautions, and they don't see a profit. They're going to cut corners, and so that's one corner that could be cut. Secondly, is low end materials. These materials can vary depending on what exactly they're painting. However, lower end materials, you're going to have risk because they don't last as long, and depending on the type of material, they could be cracking out sooner, or if it's not meant for a certain surface. For instance, just as an example, if you're painting metal that is just raw metal, exposed metal, no factory coating, nothing on it, and someone goes along and just gets some wall paint and just goes over it, just your normal wall paint, let's just say it's Promar 200, and they just paint right over it. Guarantee that within, those probably first 2 months or the first time it sees moisture, it will start to bubble, peel, flake, whatever, because it's not the proper material that goes on top of something like metal. So, lower end materials and just, putting the wrong products on stuff is very common. And then also inexperienced labor, which can go hand in hand with the products as well. But inexperienced labor. So, and this is actually something that I have came across recently. There was a painting company, and the owner has only been painting for like 3 months. He decided, hey, I'm gonna go on my own. I know how to paint a room, so I'm gonna go on my own, and nothing wrong with that. There is, but there's not. We live in America. It's American dream to be able to be an entrepreneur, and I'm thankful for that. But however, he wasn't very experienced, and so when he went to go paint, he painted some ductwork that actually is the same scenario. He used wall paint. He didn't prime it. So then the paint started flaking, started peeling, started cracking. It's fallen off because when they turn AC to heat consistently, they started seeing their problems really quickly. They reached back out to him to come back and try to fix it, and he completely ghosted them. I'm not going to say any names because this is a small town. I'm not downing anybody. I'm just seeing a lot of inconsistent painters, and then come to find out, and how I know that this painter has only been painting for 3 months is once they told me the name of the company, I actually know the gentleman. So to kind of go in with this, I'm just saying, guys, that when you are paying for a paint job, and it is the cheapest of the cheap, it does not mean that you're getting a deal. Sometimes you can. I'm not saying you can't. It really depends on the circumstance that you're doing, that you're painting, staining, whatever. But it is a very big risk when it comes in that. I mean, no prep could equal paint fails. We were actually recently did that job is a poor prep, but also wrong material. But there's many other jobs that we've done that it just has poor prep, and that we're going behind fixing other people's prep work because they just didn't prep it correctly. And this is the thing about Slye's painting. And as I grew Slye's painting and continuing to grow, it's not about coming out and giving you the highest price. It's not about just going out there and shooting you a number. I am here to be not only to scale the business, yes, but I'm here to give you what you're paying for, and that is a professional paint job. When we go to paint a wall, trim, doesn't matter what it is, exterior, all the preparation to paint that surface is already included. You don't have to pay me extra to be able to fix the issues that I see on a surface that I'm painting. I'm going to fix it. I'm going unless it's unless it's like concrete and you have cracks on your foundation or something. Obviously, that's completely different because that stuff might need, well, one, an inspection done because it could be a symptom of a problem. However, that's a different topic and a different story. But basically, we're going to give you a price for getting it to look professional. There's only certain circumstances where we don't do the drywall, and that's if it's a new construction and they already have a drywaller going through. So it's like, if someone else is getting paid for it, we're obviously just there to be contracted out for the painting. However, when we're in a homeowner's house and we see bad areas of drywall or anything, we're going to fix it. We're going to repair it. Quotes to kind of go over pricing, guys, just to kind of give a light, and this is for the Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati area, but to give a kind of light on the situation, let's just think of a 15 by 15 room. We're going to talk about interiors for a second. Interiors, 15 by 15, going off of floor square footage, that should run you, what is that, 200? So let's see, 15 times 15 is 225 floor square footage. Normally, the rate for painting a wall in this area is roughly around $2 a square foot for repaints. So that is not raw drywall. We're just coming in doing 2 coats on your walls. So we're going to take that $225 and then we're going to times that by $2. And then that should get you a ballpark range, and that is $450. So for a 15 by 15 room, you should be looking around $450, including paint, including material, including labor, for repainting those walls. Now, we have same systems like this throughout where it's like certain square footage costs for your ceilings, for your walls, for your trim, for your doors is actually a quantity count and per side count. But, you kind of get the idea. So basically, when you have someone that comes in that doesn't measure, that just kind of looks at the job, looks around and was like, oh, okay, I can get this done in 3 hours. Yeah, $300. They're either cutting themselves too short, which is good for you, or it's bad for you because now they realize they bidded it too cheap. They need to get done. They need to get out of there. So what they do is they cut corners on their prep, and they cut corners on their, or they can cut corners on their products. And it does not make good business. Or it could be the opposite. Someone could be like $600 for a room, and they could be maybe not the best painter, or they could be very, very good. But the issue is you could have saved yourselves $150 if you just would have kind of watch this podcast, right? Get an idea. No, there's plenty of videos and ideas that you can get. However, there's nothing that's really strategized to this specific area. In Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, we have a Pacific really price region that pretty much covers Louisville, Lexington, Cincinnati, Dayton. It's very similar, but after you go outside those areas, prices do go up. Like prices in Florida, California, and all those areas that are so much more higher than this area. So for exteriors, we do also go by square footage price, but a lot of companies, what they'll do is they'll kind of go by day. And what they'll do is they'll kind of see how many painters or will take for that day on a job. It's kind of inconsistent, to be honest, but I have seen a lot of painters do that. And what they would do is say $400 per painter, and then they'll say, oh, well, this is, let's just say 2 painters a day, 4 painters a day, whatever. And, that's either $800 or $1,600 a day. It'll take 3 days, and that's kind of how they get their price, and that's also including paint and material, and sometimes that will not include paint and materials. It really depends on the company. But you can kind of get an idea when it comes to exteriors and all that. When you're painting contractor and you're kind of looking at a surface, yes, you can. And a lot of times what painters do is they just, once again, they throw a random number. And that can make or break a project. And not only that, but if they're inexperienced, then they're going to be cutting corners to make the best profit. Or if they don't have enough, if they do have the profit, then they could still cut corners. Just really depends on who you hire. So what does it cost for a cheap paint job? Guys, to be honest with you, do your research. go through, get more than one estimate. You want to look at reviews. You want to look at previous photos that they've done. You want to look at your budget. If you are going in and you're hiring a painting contractor to paint your whole house and your budget is $1,200, I'm sorry, that's not going to be possible unless you want to paint it yourself, or you want to hire a handyman that maybe for an hourly rate. But at that point, that's going to be a lot on one guy. We get a lot of estimates a lot of times where they're just saying, well, we're just budgeting and planning, and we just want a painter to see how much it would be, and we give them the price, and they're sticker shocked. They're like, what? It's just paint. Guys, it is a craft. It is something that that we ourselves have to perfect every day. And it's not necessarily the painting. Sure, cutting in a wall, rolling it could be simple enough. It could be easy enough. But it's the proper prep in actually making it a professional finish. And that's kind of what I wanted to go over on this very first episode is, guys, the cheapest isn't always the best. The most expensive isn't always the best deal, or nor the best bang for your buck. But all I got to say is going throughout on these videos, on these episodes, we're going to be tuning in with other painting companies, other contractors, even realtors, even designers. We're going to get into more with interviewing more kind of spaced out and kind of going over, not only, this is going to be a subject that we're always going to come back to, pricing. Because I want to educate the area of Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati of what to expect when you're hiring a painter and the price range of what you should be looking for. Because there are franchises in the area. This is another story. There's another episode, another time. But there's franchises out here that are pricing double. And you don't know. But they're pricing double because they're a franchise. And they sub out that job to lower businesses. Okay? I don't know if I'm legally allowed to say their names, but I'm not going to. Like I said, just like the last purpose, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. However, if you know they're a franchise, just know they're making almost a 40, 30 to a 50% profit margin on, let's say, let's say an $8,000 job. They are making guaranteed around maybe $4,000 profit, because they are subbing that same job out for $3,000 to the contractor and $1,000 for material. They're taking home $4,000. But that same contractor that did it for $3,000 could be running his own business. Well, he is running his own business, but he's subcontracting from other contractors, which it is smart to do. It's a good filler, which I'll touch that base on that on another video as well. However, for homeowners, when you go through a franchise, they're subbing it out to a person for not even 30%, 40% of the cost they're charging you. And then that contractor's doing all the work, and, he's doing all the preparation. He's doing the finish coating. He's doing everything. And the only thing the franchise did was sell you the job. So it's just, I'm not trying to get into it, but this is stuff that I do want to talk about going forward on podcasts. But, it is a lot to look out for. And you just got to look out. You just got to know what you're looking for. You just got to do your research. Getting 2 to 3 estimates is great, but also research. What kind of company are they? Who are the people that are on it, who run it? Does the owner of the company paint on the job site, or does he just manage? Is he a supervisor? Do they have supervisors? Do they have everyone like a project manager, or someone that's always consistently checking up on jobs and walking jobs and making sure quality is up to par? And always, always, always ask, what is your preparation process like? That is the key, because if a painter can't tell you the proper preparations to paint something, then that's a red flag. And if he does tell you, then now you know the standard to hold him by. Guys, that's all for now. I'm not trying to make these videos very long, but guys, this is the very first episode of raising the standard. Here at Slye's Painting, we have a gold standard that we stand by, and we are raising the standard when it comes to the painting field. Guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. If not, let me know, and if so, let me know. Like and follow us for more, and this is going to grow. This is going to get something that I've been definitely praying about and seeking about, because I want to be able to grow this network of areas of Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati with contractors, interior designers, realtors, builders, you name it. We're going to try to get them on here, and we're going to be able to talk shop with them and go over in this area of Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati. And guys, if you guys have any questions, please shout out. But thank you guys for watching.